just startup. One runs a store. When they get together, it's movies they adore. It's David and Drew on movies.
David here not with Figboot on pens, but with something completely different. And with a special guest. And as you probably took it by the intro, it is Dave and Drew on movies. Hey, Drew, how you doing this morning?
I'm fantastic. That song was glorious.
So the idea here was I actually pinged Drew a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, do you want to do something where we talk about the top 10 movies that we wish other people would see more, or more people would see? And so what we decided to do was split this up 5 and 5. And so I have 5 movies that I wish more people would see, and same Drew does as well. And what's going to happen here is we're going to have 2 different videos, one on this channel here and then one on Drew's channel. And you know what? I didn't mention it up front, but yeah, we are not really talking about pens today. We are talking about movies. And that then Drew will have another video on his channel, which is me talking about my 5 movies. So to begin with, we are going to discuss Drew's 5 movies he wishes more people would see. So, Drew, what do you have to lead us off in your movie cavalcade here?
Well, I think most of mine are older, and not like super old, but in kind of like a mid-range. So 'cause I think that there are some newer movies, but I guess I wasn't really confident that people aren't seeing them as much as they should, I guess. But most of these movies are a little older, kind of like mid 2000s, early 2000s sort of deal. And they've been around long enough for me to feel confident that like they're flying too far under the radar. So you will see a pattern there.
Okay, now if you're telling me that mid 2000s is really old, that makes me feel really old.
I'm just saying that enough time has passed, David, for me to feel confident that they are actually flying under the radar. Some of the newer ones, I'm like, I don't know, maybe people are seeing this. I don't know, but I'm confident that not enough people are seeing these. In fact, so
okay.
We'll start off with, coincidentally, I think the oldest one, which is only 1998, so it's definitely not that old, but The Mask of Zorro. So if you'll remember, this was the one with Antonio Banderas, the first one of 2, 1998, which is just a phenomenal action movie. From soup to nuts, it is a romp right up there with... So I think that The Mummy has been given its flowers recently. People are going back and being like, you know what? The Mummy with Brendan Fraser, top tier, classic action movie, no notes, phenomenal. This one was made right around that same time, I think a year earlier, and it doesn't get kind of the retroactive praise that The Mummy is getting, and I think that's a bit of a crime. The Mask of Zorro is a fantastic movie. The sets were amazing. The stunts were phenomenal. The practical effects were incredible. There's an explosion at the end that's 100% real, and it's frightening. And there's something about you know it's real. You see wood and splinters and beams just shattering and bursting, and it creates a concern with you in the audience to see a real filmed explosion that just doesn't happen with CG explosions. I feel like we know it when we see them, and this one was just real, visceral, gnarly, and the only thing that I think it has going against it is that almost entirely it is cast with Latin actors and actresses, and then you've got Sir Anthony Hopkins playing kind of a Spanish person. He doesn't try super hard. And the funny thing is, as good as Anthony Hopkins is, I realized, kind of in preparing for this talk, I was like, I wonder what some fun facts are about this movie. He was recast, or no, he was a replacement. Do you want to know who was originally cast as the original Zorro, who then passed his mantle to Antonio Banderas?
The original Zorro. Oh,
so that's what Anthony Hopkins' character was.
The original Zorro. Oh, okay.
You've seen Highlander, right?
Yes.
So you've seen Sean Connery try to portray a Spanish person. It was Sean Connery.
Oh.
He was originally cast.
How is the sword fighting in this movie? Because just in my generic thinking of Zorro movies, it's almost like fencing as opposed to sword play. And so how does it really portray danger or action, or does it really feel like they're just kind of fencing back and forth?
There is, I think, more fencing. It definitely feels like a more kind of, I think they wanted it to feel like an old school Zorro flick. So that old kind of Errol Flynn era of Hollywood swordplay, it definitely harkens back to that. But I think that the difference is, because, you get those old movies, the silver screen action flicks where, you've got the cutting of the chandelier rope and all those other kind of dangerous elements mixed in. And it definitely brings some of that to the forefront, which is really exciting. So not only does it have more of a kind of grit and realism, a bit of a, I don't know, I get grit's the right word, to the fight scenes, but you still do have a very solid injection of kind of the golden age of Hollywood swordplay as well. So I think they did that intentionally. So yeah, it does feel very choreographed, but in the best way. I think that right around, the late 90s, early 2000s, it was kind of the final days of the no CG action film. And this is a great representative of that, because then a year later you had The Mummy, which obviously has a ton of CG effects. But The Mask of Zorro, it's all raw and it's all real. The stunts were incredible. You've got him riding two horses, one leg on each horse, jumping over branches, landing back on two different horses. It just is just a real raw action film, and it just deserves for folks to pay a little bit more attention to it, I think.
And while CGI is necessary, there is something that I really adore about practical effects in movies, and knowing that they had to physically figure out how to do this, whether it's through editing or whether it's through physical, there's many different ways you could accomplish it. But I almost have a better appreciation for some physical practical effect than, I don't want to discount it and just say someone making it in the computer, but because that takes skill on its own. But there's a different level of movie making when you create it in camera, which I really appreciate.
Absolutely. And interestingly enough, Robert Rodriguez was originally attached to direct this movie with Antonio Banderas. And it makes me wonder, what it would be like if Rodriguez stuck with it, because he's got a very unique flavor of filmmaking. And I kind of I don't want it to be different, but I love Rodriguez, especially, in that time. Those were the Desperado days, and he was really cranking out some good stuff. So I don't know. It does make you wonder. But instead of Rodriguez did drop out. He had some disputes with the studio about budgets. Martin Campbell stepped in. And Martin Campbell, we've talked about James Bond before, David. And Martin Campbell is the renowned director of both GoldenEye and Casino Royale, which, if you're a Bond fan, you know that those two are in the undisputed top five. Those are two of Bond's finest outings. So Martin Campbell knows a good action movie.
Well, if Rodriguez still would have been associated with it, then maybe Zorro would have showed up with his with a guitar case, with his sword in a guitar case, like El Mariachi or something along those lines.
I love Rodriguez, but I'm kind of glad that he did depart, because he does excellent work with Antonio, but I still feel like it would feel a little bit too much like Desperado, even with his music choices and stuff like that. He edits a lot of his own stuff too, especially back in those days. So I think it might have felt a little too familiar. So I'm glad that they went with Martin Campbell.
Cool. What is your second movie?
My second movie is from 2002, and it is Disney's Treasure Planet. So this movie came out around a time where Disney's animation studios were not excelling in what they produced, unfortunately. And I won't say that they weren't cranking out good stuff, but what they were publishing wasn't really making waves. I looked at a timeline of kind of what else was going on around this time, and on the Wikipedia page for Disney's animation, they actually listed 1999 to 2005 as because they've got Disney's Renaissance era and et cetera. They've got terms for all these. 99 and 2005 are considered the experimentation and corporate disorder era. So this was around the time where Treasure Planet came out, Atlantis came out, Brother Bear, there was some stuff that just really, people weren't rushing to see in the theater. But Treasure Planet, I want to say, deserves a second chance for anybody who, like me, I was, right out of high school at that time. And I absolutely did not have this on my radar. It wasn't until I became a parent and my son discovered Treasure Planet that I really realized that this is a really solid movie. The animation is so beautiful. And again, this is right before Disney really leaned heavily into leaning on Pixar. And so the animation was, in a way, I would say Princess and the Frog was like the final, solid traditional animated masterpiece. But this one was right up there. And it has a vibe that is completely its own, and the voice cast is amazing, but the style of the animation is really something. It looks like art. It's a really, really stunning movie to watch. And
is it kind of basically like a pirate story in space? Is that what it is?
It's Treasure Planet in space. So, as we know, Treasure Planet is a great thing to adapt. You can adapt it to either Star Wars characters, as we saw in the Skeleton Crew, approximate anyway. And then you could very easily and successfully adapt it with Muppets as well. We've seen that succeed. So it's a very adaptable concept. So they adapted this one to be set in space. So it's Space Treasure Island. You've got all the original characters for the most part, same names. And, but yeah, it's spacey and Disney-y. The only thing that's a little funky is that it does feel a little dated because of the soundtrack. It was around the same time. It does have a lot of the same kind of like 3D, 2D coordination that Tarzan had. And this was also around the time where Disney was like, we don't need our characters singing in our movies anymore. And obviously they changed that. But this was around that time zone. So no characters actually, no, I think they might have one song, but it's not a heavily sung soundtrack. It does have a very late 90s soundtrack to it. So that's the only thing that's a little cringy. It's fine, it fits because the kid's kind of pretty angsty at the beginning of it, so it fits his mood, I will say. But yeah, that's the only thing that's a little. It does date itself at some point, and the kid's hairstyle is pretty late 90s as well. Even though it's supposed to be in space.
Now,
but
Oh, go ahead. There was a documentary I saw not recently, but a while back, kind of about the Disney Renaissance, right about that time frame when they kind of made that switch to kind of the Lion King, Little Mermaid, and they kind of made the switch. And did you see that documentary?
I didn't see the documentary,
I can't remember.
I'm very familiar with that era.
There is one shot that is hilarious because Tim Burton used to work as a Disney animator. And there's a scene where they are literally going from office to office and like poking their heads in. Hey, Jim, how you doing? Hey, Frank, how you doing? And he opens it up and there's like a 22-year-old Tim Burton who very much looks like a 22-year-old Tim Burton who does not belong there. And they open it up and he just kind of looks up in these like deep black eyes and you just in his soul, you're like, I am not living my best life drawing these Disney animations. I really want to do something else. And literally like a 5-second shot says so much in how much he didn't want to be there. Maybe he was having a good time and probably learned a lot, but it was just funny to have them open the door and see a very young Tim Burton there at the Disney Animation Studios.
That's amazing. I would love to see that shot. That's hilarious. Speaking of the Disney Renaissance, though, if you need a little bit more of a recommendation to consider watching Treasure Planet, I will say that it was directed by the duo of John Musker and Ron Clements, who also directed The Great Mouse Detective, The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Hercules, Princess and the Frog, and Moana. So, boosh. Those two are powerhouses of directors, creating some of the best Disney films ever made. And a lot of people say the Disney Renaissance officially kicked off with The Little Mermaid. Great Mouse Detective came slightly before, so I don't know. I like to give Great Mouse Detective a little bit of credit there.
Now, one more Disney fact before we move on is something that you might not know is that my grandmother worked as an animator for Disney, and she animated the fish in Pinocchio. That was what she worked on. This was kind of at the time when, if you see it, there was just basically rooms full of people that were doing animation for that. And that, yeah, she did the fish in Pinocchio, and that was part of her job.
That is so cool. Wow. Okay. Good job, Grandma. What do you call her? She's Meemaw, Grandma, Granny?
Grandma. I mean, she was.
Good job, Grandma.
She was an amazing. She was a pilot. She she crop dusted. She also in World War II they would build planes in the Midwest, and then they would need people to fly them to the coasts, and so she would fly the bombers and fly the fighters from the Midwest to the coast before they went off to the war. And then they found out that her husband, my grandpa, was in the war fighting, and they made her stop because they had 2 kids and they didn't want both parents doing something risky. But yeah, Grandma was quite the character.
David, why have you not done a video documentary on this lady?
I think I mentioned it once.
That's
once
not
in one of
enough.
my videos.
You need to dedicate some time to this. Holy crap, man. That's fantastic.
And then also she was really humble about it. She would never tell us things. We would have to find things out. And then we'd be like, oh, wait a second, you work for Disney? And she, oh, yeah, I did. And then she'd tell us all about it, but she wasn't up front with it. And we'd have to find these things out about her that were amazing.
A woman during that time animating for Disney and flying bombers? Are you kidding me? What the heck? Dude, make this a project at some point. Get a documentary together, a little mini documentary on Grandma, please.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, it would be quite the interesting story.
Yeah.
So. Okay, film number 3. What you got?
Okay. Film number 3 is perhaps the one I'm most passionate about, and that is Cowboys and Aliens from 2011. This one really just boils down to cast. Listen to these people, all right? Daniel Craig, Harrison Ford, Olivia Wilde, Keith Carradine, Paul Dano, Walton Goggins, Clancy Brown, Sam freaking Rockwell. How is it that even just I don't care if the movie's called Cowboys and Aliens, listen to that cast. If you've seen half of these actors in anything else, you should know that it doesn't matter if the movie's called Spinach and Wigwams or, Cookies and Chairs. Man, watch this movie with those people in it. There's nothing bad is going to happen. You're not going to come out with a piece of junk. Come on now.
I remember seeing the trailer. And everyone was kind of like, what? There was a big kind of what at the end of the trailer going, okay, is this a joke? Or, and then it didn't do quite as well in the box office.
No, it did not. It did not.
But I agree with you that cast is incredible. Those are some of my favorite actors and actresses.
Yes. And they're fantastic in the movie. It's a silly concept. It's based off of a graphic novel. I think it might be an offshoot of Marvel or something like that, or Dark Horse maybe. But, it's the source material is silly. But when you think about it, if someone did an alien invasion movie that if the same thing happened in modern day, no one would think it's weird. But yet for some reason, if we have an alien invasion movie take place in a non-present day time, it all of a sudden becomes oh, that's weird. Why would they do that? Pirates and aliens. Knights of the Round Table and aliens. Why can't aliens come down at a different time in our history? Who says they always have to be present day aliens or future aliens? Come on. So I think it's an original concept. But here's the thing. Even if you go in there, and the only reason the name is Cowboys and Aliens is because that's what the graphic novel was called. Even if you go in there and you see something that you were like, oh, really? That's kind of weird. It doesn't matter, because I'll tell you, those moments happen where something happens and I'm kind of like, huh, okay. But then you see Daniel Craig and then you see Harrison Ford and you're instantly like, oh, no, okay. Yeah, tell me more. Continue. Go ahead. You come right back in because they are in it. Everybody is in it. Sam Rockwell is they are just focused, serious, committed to everything. And it makes it so that even the most ridiculous things can happen in that movie and you stay in it because the actors keep you there. It's phenomenal. I really wish more people would give it a chance. It's got a weird name, a funky concept, but it's worth your attention. I promise.
I used to read a lot of scripts, and sometimes you could get your hands on scripts before the movies come out, and it was always a challenge to read a script and then in your mind say, will this be a good movie? Because that is, maybe the public really doesn't generally know how hard it is to make a film, and that when you read a movie, a lot of times you might see there is a very fine line, especially in comedy, between ridiculous and brilliance. And especially when you're reading it on the page, because then it all comes into delivery. And the same goes for other movies as well, to where you might read them and they might come across as amazing on the page, but flop once they get to the screen, or the other way around. And so that's why I never really blame an actor about being in a bad movie, because that might have sounded like a really good idea when they first got onto it. And who knows what the path was from beginning to end. Sometimes that path goes up and it turns into something better than the sum of its parts. And other times it goes down. And so it sounds like in that one, it was probably it might not have read as well on the page, but then once you got all those pieces together, that it turned into something incredible.
Yeah, it really was. The only it was a little bit of a fun fact. It was originally attached to Robert Downey Jr. for the protagonist role that later went to Daniel Craig. And I like Daniel Craig. I think that his seriousness really kept the movie grounded. Him and Harrison Ford. I don't think two other people could have kept me engaged. I think that Robert Downey Jr. might have. Oh yeah, it was originally Robert Downey Jr. I think he might have made it a little too comical, maybe, because he's just naturally kind of like a sardonic, kind of, sarcastic guy. I think that would have come through a little bit. Maybe. He's a fantastic actor, so maybe he would be told not to. But it was Jon Favreau directing, so the two of them and their dynamic is a very comfortable one. So on one hand, I think that obviously his accent would have been better. Daniel Craig, he's great, but his Western accent was kind of funky. His hat fit oddly. I don't know. I never really liked the way his hat looked in that movie. So on one hand, I kind of do wish I could see Robert Downey Jr. in that role, but I think the seriousness was necessary. I think Daniel Craig's face and sternness was necessary for that film. So
I mean, Craig can do an accent. He does a great job in those Knives Out movies with his southern drawl kind of his Louisiana drawl he puts on. So he can do that. He is very talented.
It is, and I'll say that the effects are good too. A lot of practical effects, but then ILM did all of the CG as well, and like the aliens and stuff, they still hold up pretty well. So I'll say that for a movie that's over 10 years old, the CG that is there still holds up pretty well. The aliens kind of have like that kind of District 9 sort of look to them. They're not funky. Not too bad. Yeah, sometimes when you look back at that older animation or the older CGI, sometimes it plays well, and other times you're like, how did we think this was good? But at the time, it was amazing. So, Cowboys and Aliens, I'll have to check that one out. So, okay, was that 3 or 4? Was that? That was 3. Yep.
Oh, okay. What do we got for your 4th?
Number 4 goes to the incomparable Paddington 2. Paddington 1. Solid, 2014. Paddington 2 came out in 2017. And there's not a lot of specifics to say about this movie other than the fact that you will be happier if you give this a watch. Your day will be brighter. You will be in a better mood. And right now, with everything that's going on, we need more Paddington 2s in our movie lineup. So if you are 5, if you are 95, watch Paddington 2. It's just a delight. The music, the sounds, the sights, the actors, the character engagement. It's funny. It's heartwarming. It's entertaining to just look at. Like, you could watch this without any audio and enjoy it, and you can listen to it without any visuals and you could enjoy it. It's just that quality, and it sounds silly. It's about a CG bear in London. So yeah, but this movie from 2017 until 2021 enjoyed a 100% Rotten Tomato fresh score. Like, that means no one gave it a bad rating. And if you look at the movies in Rotten Tomatoes history that have achieved a 100% score over several months with, I think they say at least 20 different reviews, these are all like low budget, lesser known movies. Like, I would say 99% of them are movies that you probably never heard of. Some of them don't even have a Wikipedia page. And Terminator is on there for an interesting reason. But Paddington 2, again, it's up there with Lady Bird and Citizen Kane as far as the most consistently 100%ed movies in Rotten Tomatoes history. Like it's that beloved, and we're talking hundreds of reviews, not just like 21 to make it qualify. Like it's
I can remember
beloved.
when the very first trailer for the first film came out. You were kind of like, oh, okay, that's cute. They're making a Paddington film. Okay, it must be for
the kids. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after a while, you started hearing a lot of people say, but it's really good. And you heard enough people say, yeah, but it's really good, that eventually I checked it out. And yeah, it was very good. I do like when films have a distinct look to their world and just a distinct color palette. And that one especially does. And the bear is, well, yeah, it's obvious it's a CGI bear. It's not too obtrusive. It's done fairly well. And then when the second one came out, it was like, okay, yeah, I'm in. I'll go check out the second one because they had done such a quality job with the first one. It wasn't like, you didn't feel like it was a money grab. You felt like they made a quality film, and you're like, okay, I'm in for the second one. Now, I have not seen Paddington in Peru yet. Have you?
No, that just came out last weekend.
Last weekend? Oh, for some reason I thought it was 2024. I could be mistaken. So maybe
No. It released last weekend, so it's on our list. My son's crazy about Paddington, so we will definitely be seeing it as soon as possible.
Oh, okay. Maybe the trailer came out in 2024. So, I was interested to see how they did when they went to deepest, darkest Peru.
We're looking forward to it. I'm sure it can't be that bad.
So, no, I would say that is a very good recommendation, and I would recommend Paddington 2 as well. It's just one of those movies that it's a joy, and when you're done, like you said, you feel a little bit better. And when you're done, you're like, I would rather watch 100 movies like this as opposed to some other Hollywood schlock.
Absolutely. I will personally guarantee your time with Paddington 2, or you'll get a full refund for what I deem your time is worth.
Okay, well, I think that's a pretty safe bet. So what do you have to close out the list with? Or at least your half of the list.
Yes, to close out my half of the list, my fifth movie is from 2005, and it is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And this is an action comedy, dark noir-ish movie. It's like a buddy crime drama, but it's got some like kind of Chinatown-ish vibes to it as well. Hard-boiled cop-ishness. Very fun, very unique. But the reason I'm recommending it is because, again, kind of like Treasure Planet, it came out in a time where it was very susceptible to flying under the radar. So Robert Downey Jr. stars in this movie alongside Val Kilmer. And this was before Iron Man. This was, also when Val Kilmer was not on anyone's, top 5 lists of must-see performances. He was doing some indie stuff, but he wanted to return to a slightly comedic role, because who knows? I don't know if he had done a comedy since like Top Secret or something like that. So
I don't know. The Island of Dr. Moreau was pretty funny if you looked at it like a comedy. So.
Oh my God! Yeah, I heard that movie was awful to film.
Yes, that goes down as one of the worst movies of all time. But there is a good documentary about how terrible that film was to make, and that was actually worthwhile watching.
Coincidentally, 2 movies that Brando was in have documentaries about how terrible they were to make. Right? Because Hearts of Darkness for Apocalypse Now, like.
Yes, the Hearts of Darkness basically. When you watch that, you're like, I really don't need to work with Brando.
No,
because there was no preparation. He just showed up. He did what he wanted. I'm sure at one point he was a reasonable person, but it was just like it was. Your whole movie came to a screeching halt because of this. And so, he did not seem like a pleasant person to work with, we'll say, in the last stages of his career.
No, certainly not. So Val Kilmer at that point wasn't known for, comedic timing, and Robert Downey Jr. was still trying to crawl back into, the world
Relevancy.
of Hollywood. And So this movie, directed by Shane Black, who is famous for the Lethal Weapon movies, Robert Downey Jr. had to audition like a regular human being for this role, and he got it. They liked his reading, and this propelled him into the view of Jon Favreau and got him cast as Iron Man, which completely changed his life. You could argue that Iron Man changed cinema forever, because that was the beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And
yeah, that really kicked it off.
It did, and if you didn't cast Downey in that role, would it have kicked off? And if Downey wasn't in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, he wouldn't have gotten Iron Man. So really, you could say Kiss Kiss Bang Bang changed the world. I don't know, but no, it is really a good movie. These two deliver a fantastic performance. They've got great chemistry together. Downey's timing and comedic snapbacks are just so fun to watch. It's a great blend of comedy and action and a little bit of kind of film noir-ish detective vibe, if you're into that, which I certainly am. And it does kind of true back to some of the old kind of, detective-y movies from, the 70s and 60s. So there's that going on too. Cinematography is a lot of fun. And again, it was before Downey made a splash, and you really do get to see why his, second coming was as good as it was, because Kiss Kiss Bang Bang really put him back on the map. And coincidentally, Shane Black, the director, would end up directing Iron Man 3 about 10 years later. So he did get to reunite with Downey when Downey was enjoying a very, very different role and reputation in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But this was the thing that springboarded him into that role that, kind of changed everything. So
I hadn't heard that. I hadn't heard the
fun.
film mentioned in a while, but then a while back, I was listening to the podcasts for Breaking Bad as well as Better Call Saul when those shows were on, which were excellent podcasts. But the creators, Vince Gilligan and the other creators of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, really raved about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, as that was one of their favorite films, and that made me want to see it because they were raving about it so much, and how it influenced some of their decisions that they made in those two shows.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun, and I think it has successfully flown under the radar. I think that folks should definitely give it a try, especially because Val Kilmer's hilarious. One fun thing I like is that Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, the term, is kind of an unofficial term for this style of movie where there's a heavy romance feature, but also a lot of gunplay involved. Usually James Bond is a classic example of a Kiss Kiss Bang Bang movie.
Which makes sense.
Yep.
So, cool. Well, thank you very much, Drew, for sharing your 5 films. Now,
That's
what
my
we're going
list.
to do is that we are going to then record my 5 films, and we're going to put that up on your channel. And I'll give a little bit of preview. I'll say that one of my films is a kaiju film. I have a silent movie, kind of silent movie. One I'd say is rather nostalgic, a documentary, and then even a modern film that was just recently in theaters. And so that's a little sneak preview of the things that I'll be sharing on your channel here.
Fantastic. And I will say, for an honorable mention, it's a TV series, but if you haven't ever watched Black Flag, I think it was originally a Starz or a Showtime movie, but it is available for streaming right now. Since we're not talking about TV shows, I wasn't going to throw it in there, but that's a great under-the-radar TV series that I think is just absolutely phenomenal. It's a crime that the actors in that show did not go on to have incredibly successful and big A-list careers, because they all deserve it.
What is the general theme? Does that almost sounds like a pirate theme?
It is very much a pirate theme.
Yes.
Yes, it's a phenomenal
like
pirate TV show.
Like Our Flag is Death. Have you seen Our Flag is Death?
I've seen a couple episodes. It didn't hook me, but yeah, it was enjoyable. But Black Flag is more serious. It's a combination of characters from real life, like Charles Vane and Jack Rackham, and then characters from Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island, like Long John Silver and Captain Flint. So it's a really unique blend, and everything is shot on location. A lot of practical effects, real ships, and gorgeous set. So yeah, highly recommend it.
Well, cool. You know what? That might be an idea for a later video that we have to do of top 10 TV series or limited TV series that, that we need more people to see. So cool. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up here and go ahead and tune in to Drew's channel. Or if you tuned into Drew's first, then thank you for coming over to mine and checking this out. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.